and then we'll get the meeting going. Okay, we are live. And now I'm just gonna click the record button here. Okay, so we are recording. It is August 5th, 2020. This is your department head meeting, which we do regularly once a month in the beginning of the month. This meeting is being audio and video recorded, and it will be on YouTube. And I'm not sure if cable will put it on channel 9, but it will be available if they so choose. And at this time, if everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and you can unmute yourselves if you'd like. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, everyone seems to be on mute, so I'm not going to call on everyone one-on-one. What I'd like to do is, if you have an update, just feel free to unmute yourself and you will have the floor. But I would like to start with my colleagues. So first, Selectman Pacheco and then Selectman Goulart, if you had any updates or any knowledge or any insight that you'd like to share that you think the other departments might value or, find beneficial, you have the floor.
Brett, I don't have anything right now. I'll just listen in.
Okay. Selectman Pacheco, let me unmute you 1 second, just in case.
Yes, I'm back. I'm sorry.
No worries, Mr. Rhines. Selectman Pacheco, did you have anything?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Rhines, since you're already unmuted, did you have any updates or anything you wanted to share with the team?
Right now, our office manager has been accepting and going through some paperwork in regards to Form As. Some people who have already presented paperwork for Form As and been approved are eligible to build. As long as their building permit, I believe, has been taken care of by the building commissioner. We're in the midst of reworking the business zone on Route 44. That's in the works again. And I'd also like to reach out with you, Dr. Zagrafis, and the town administrator to work on the bylaw for the soil board.
Yes, that's a good point. We said that we would do that this month. So definitely, Madam Administrator is on vacation. Sorry, I'm reaching for a Post-it. And I will coordinate a meeting. Do you want to start myself, you, the town administrator, and Mrs. Easterday? But really, this will come down to a planning board discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
So we'll leave that open as a working session. It's when meetings are posted, it'd be a working session type thing.
Okay, sounds good. Like I said, we're happy to meet, but I would fully expect, that the decision and the discussion around the verbiage. So what we're talking about is the soil bylaw, the one that establishes the Soil Conservation Commission. And so what we found in doing our due diligence and having discussions with the planning board chairman, as well as Mrs. Easterday, was that there is already an earth removal bylaw under the zoning bylaws. And so based on previous discussions and what happened at town meeting, it sounds like what would be best is if we kind of consolidated the language from that soil bylaw, not the creation of the Soil Conservation Commission, but just the language governing certain actions surrounding soil, such as removal, mining, etc. Take some of that language and add that to the existing earth removal zoning bylaw. and then go to a town meeting and try to get that revised bylaw adopted and then rescind the soil conservation bylaw that creates that commission. So that's the conversation that we're having. And so what Mr. Rhines is asking is that we kick off that discussion and send some, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a skeleton, Mr. Rhines, of where we think the bylaw should go, and send that to the broader planning board for discussion.
Yes, I thought the Gravis, I'd have to agree with that. We'd like to get the verbiage correct. And once we've decided, we of course would have to send that, I would assume, to our attorneys just to make sure the verbiage is correct. So we could be able to bring it to town meeting to the floor to pass it.
Sure, sounds good to me.
I'd like to say something else.
You have
For
the-
everyone who's out there, if no one knows already, I have given up the chairmanship of Parks and Recreation, and I've also given up the chairmanship of the Community Preservation Committee. I am staying on both committees, and I do hope that once I do not run for re-election for Parks and Recreation, that I may be able to be appointed as an at-large member back to the CPC, but that would be a discussion for another day.
Brett?
Sure. Selectman Goulart?
Yeah, I'm at the Grange Hall. Todd, where are you meeting? Are you in the main hall or downstairs?
He looks like he's downstairs in the conference room.
The library's upstairs.
Okay. Oh, okay, so Jocelyn, you're on?
I don't see her on.
Well, they actually occupy upstairs. A couple of them work up there.
Yeah, they're just there, Selectman Goulart, to do the regular services, I think, is what I'd say.
Okay, so, all right, so I'll go downstairs. So Brett, I guess disconnect me?
Yep, no worries.
Okay, I'll talk to you in a few minutes, thanks.
See you in a minute, take your time. Okay, so Mr. Rhines, did you have any other updates on anything planning related, anything Parks and Rec, CPC?
I'll start with Parks and Rec. We met last evening, and I was giving the permission by the members of the committee to work with the town administrator to research any available grant monies that would be available to help us defray the cost for a new playground in North Dayton. Now, these residents have been waiting for this for a long time, and I believe that this is a priority. Other things can wait. This is just my opinion, and I'll leave it at that. In regards to CPC, I'm working directly with Mr. Borkman, who's now the new chair. I will not lead that committee without making sure that it's still a functioning and running machine. I've promised him that, and I think Mr. Borkman will do just fine. He's working together with our administrative assistant, Ms. Robitaille, and we're getting ready to meet on August 20th is our next meeting. We always meet the third Thursday of the month. And anyone who would like to present any applications, we are open for applications for eligibility now until November. And of course, we would receive them, we review them, and take them under advisement, and then get back in touch with the petitioner who brought them back in. So we're looking at our main charge right now, I believe, would be to do a playground in North Dayton. I think that's all I have, Dr. Serafis. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me.
No, it's okay. Thank you, sir. All right. Who else would like to provide an update? Feel free to unmute yourself, and you have the floor. Should we actually, Selectman Pacheco, should we, or Mr. Commissioner, should we provide just a brief update? Because I don't believe everyone was there on the town hall, not the town hall, but what's going on with the public library. I know Mrs. Tavares, I don't think she's here. I don't think we have a representative from the library, but we did have a discussion about it at a meeting, a special meeting last week. So I don't know if anyone wants to provide an update on that. I'm happy to, but sure, Selectman Pacheco.
Yes, I don't mind speaking on this. As you know, we didn't really resolve anything. We got another meeting, I believe it's August 26th, and we've invited Tom Ferry to that meeting. As you know, Mr. Ferry came into our meeting late because he wasn't initially invited. And secondly, I believe we've invited Alice Souza or someone, also someone from Prime Time. We talked about the necessary renovations that are needed at the Andrew Carnegie Hall at the moment. We're waiting to get a rough estimate as to how much it would cost to update it. We're talking about having a second egress on the second floor, the main floor of the library, as well as having handicap bathrooms available. So we're early into this process. We talked about possible funding, possible CBC funding, going before the town in October or November for a special town meeting. But we really haven't resolved it. We also talked about briefly, and that's why we've invited Mrs. Souza to our meeting, about possibly using the Primetime building for the library as a temporary place. But that's only in early discussion. I'm not sure if Mrs. Goulart wishes to add to that.
Selectman Goulart, you're muted. 1 second, Selectman Goulart. You have to unmute yourself on the computer. It's the button right far bottom far left. There's probably a red slash on it, so if you click it, you'll be able to speak.
Oh, okay, thank you.
There you
No,
are.
I don't have anything, Brett, sorry.
All right, no worries. Yeah, so that's a Selectman Pacheco, as you stated, that's a ongoing discussion, which will be had with all the key stakeholders, Prime Time and Council on Aging, as well as the library trustees, building commissioner, fire chief, of course, and the selectman and town administrator. So those are ongoing. Anyone else who would like the floor just to provide an update for us?
Brett,
Sure,
when I left the car, you guys were talking about the planning board's soil bylaw and, you know, getting a bylaw change. I would request that anything related to soil removal, so forth, so on, be sent to the Stormwater Committee for review too, so that we make sure there's no conflicts in our approved bylaw regulations relative to stormwater, okay?
Yep. Mr. Rhines, that's fine with the plan with you, right? You have to unmute yourself. I'm sorry, Mr. Rhines. I'm sure it's fine with him. We had discussed this before, and that was part of the discussion was we would kick it off, Selectman Goulart. We would just take a look at what we have on the books already in terms of the earth removal zoning bylaw and the soil conservation bylaw, right? We're not dealing with the regs. That'll be the responsibility of the established authority. And we will send it to all the relevant stakeholders to make sure everything is in compliance with all the other things on the books.
Right, right, that's fine.
If we're going to do this, it has to be done right, and it has to be done in a manner where, because right now we have two bylaws on the books for the same thing essentially, and one is more beefed up than the other.
Well, the original one is so old. I mean, that was when we were discussing it. That was the point in looking at what we have on the books now and make sure we have the latest. So that's good.
Yep.
Correct. I would absolutely agree with that.
Thanks, Mr. Rhines. Sorry.
Thanks, Tim.
And those conversations, I assume, would happen before it's brought to, obviously, the town meeting for a vote.
Yes.
Does anyone else have an update that they'd like to provide? Again, I'm not going to go one by one and put people on the spot, but if you have something that you feel the team should be aware of, don't assume we all have the same set of information. This meeting is to get us all on the same page. So if you have anything to share.
Sure, I have an update, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely, sir.
So this is Jonathan Gray, Zoning Board of Appeals. I just wanted to let everyone know our next Strawberry Fields meeting is August 13th at 7 p.m. That'll be on Zoom once again. The ZBA's attorney, as well as the applicant's attorney and team, are working on some draft decision language, as well as exhibit waiver document, and anything related to this case. You know, if someone asks, it's all available on the zoning board web page under additional links. Folks can find Strawberry Fields public documents there for your review. And if you have any comments, definitely let us know, because it seems like we're probably getting a little bit closer to sort of the ultimate decision on this case. So definitely don't wait on sending any comments. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gray. And I know you have a lot of knowledge, but you started, when you started, this thing was already ongoing. So I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate the way that you jumped in and the way that you really hit the ground running. It's really nice to see. So thank you.
Certainly a continuing education as the process unfolds.
For us all. Mr. Ferry, did you have any updates? I only ask because you're unmuted, sir. You have the floor, if you'd like.
I just have a couple things. It's in the lazy part of the summer, so not much is going on. So the paving's going to happen in North Dayton Thursday, Friday. Pearl Street project is underway. Center Street will be right after that for the sidewalk. The sweeper is being delivered this afternoon. And that little storm we had, we lost 2 majestic trees in town. It is what it is, but there's a lot of debris out there, but we did lose 2 nice trees though. I do have a question for the board. It's, again, I'm sure you guys are getting this question sidelined over and over, clarification on the spending, because I'm working actively with ongoing projects and I can't wait the 2 weeks. So I understand if it's something I have to have and it's in the best interest of our town to move forward, but then again, I'm hearing differently. I mean, after I'm caught up with these other projects, I got to start my weed whacking the sidewalks and whatnot. That's really non-essential, but do you want me to buy weed whacker string without a vote and fuel for the trucks, or you need to, you know, it gets a little kind of fluent, you know?
Sure. That's a good question. Before we answer, Mr. Ferry, that specific question, I'd like to pose a broader question to the board. Now that we have a better idea, and I'm not sure everything is finalized, right? We all understand that the budget matters with the state are not finalized, but we do have a better idea of Chapter 70 money. We have an idea that we're going to be level funded on that. Do we want to start considering not having the discretionary spending freeze now that we have a better idea of what the fiscal year chapter funds from the state will be for next year? That was an awkward sentence, but I think you know what I mean.
Tom, how much money do you need to get the kind of supplies you need to do what you want to do now?
You mean like the sidewalk maintenance, stuff like that? That's tops would be $20. As you know, sometimes you got to wear out the weed whacker heads, you got to replace stuff like that. It's hard to say, because when you start it, you want to stay on it.
Okay. To my fellow board members, how about if we, instead of removing it, because we should discuss that with Mallory, how about if we set a limit of up to, let's say, $500 for necessary supplies, so that Tom and any other department head that really needs stuff to do a job can do that. And then we discuss at our next selectmen's meeting how we're going to go forward with this. But at least Tom and anybody else who needs supplies, they're not gonna spend a fortune, but they're not gonna have to be held up either.
Selectman Pacheco, I want you to weigh in. I always weigh
Sure.
in the floor.
Sure, I'm okay with setting a limit for each department. I think $500 is a little high, and I think it should be brought back before the board. But a smaller figure, I understand Mr. Ferry's concern.
Mhm.
You know, if he has to buy the trim wire for the weed whacker or gasoline, he shouldn't necessarily have to come to us every time he wants to do something like that. But I think $500 is a little high. We do meet, as you know, twice a month, and it's up to department heads to look into the future as to what their needs are going to be. But I think we still have to be careful with our.
Would you consider 350? Hey, this is only until we have that selectmen's meeting next week. This is only between now and our selectmen's meeting.
Where
So-
we make maybe a broader decision, Selectman Goulart?
Exactly. Just to get the department heads through until we have our next meeting. So is 350 more acceptable?
I'm more in line with 200 or 250 at the moment till we have a full discussion with our town administrator and have this as an agenda item. But I do think that Mr. Ferry should not have to come back to us every time he needs to spend $20 or $30.
All right, so let's compromise. Let's do 300, and this will be an agenda item for the selectmen's meeting a week from today. And we can discuss this with the town administrator and see if we're going to lift the discretionary spending process, or if we're going to put some kind of a dollar value, meaning anything below this amount, a department head can go out and get what they need.
I think for me personally, professionally, whatever you want to call it, I think 250 is more reasonable. But I taught Mr. Pilling, you had your hand up. I know you're talking to Roz. I didn't want to skip out on you. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is we have
a problem here with some of our expenditures, like we had to buy some rat traps and, getting permission to buy $10 worth of rat traps. Is there a way that maybe under a certain dollar amount that Mallory can authorize it, and above a certain dollar amount the selectmen have to authorize it?
So what I think we're talking about, Mr. Pilling, addresses that. I think we're trying to decide on a dollar figure. I think it sounds like we're in the 250 range, where a department head can use up to $250. But this is only just to get us to the August 12th meeting, where the town administrator will be there and we can make a broader decision, perhaps on the spending freeze.
The only thing I would say is you referred to necessary. I think you need to find what necessary is, because when we had asked before, it was only for life-saving emergencies, which a rat trap is not a life-saving emergency, but to us, it was extremely necessary to buy them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll have to clarify language if we take a vote here today. Mr. Ferry?
Yes, I agree with Ken on, we really need to have Mallory part of this discussion. I can wait before you guys even act on it. I like the way you guys are leaning. I think we should get away from the word of discretionary spending or limited spending and call it something else, maybe cap it. But the 350 may be, just to move forward smoother, the 350 may be low. But I'm fine with waiting until Mallory's back and make a consensus decision, though.
My only concern, Mr. Ferry, is just, I know not every department head has to plan in the same manner, but I know for you and your department, you do have to plan and schedule certain work. My only concern for that is that you having to wait even till next Wednesday might put off some work or put you guys out. And I certainly don't want to do that over, a small, every penny counts, I understand, but over, $20 or something like that. I don't see you having to put off work for that. That's all.
Right.
I don't think it's fair to anybody, to be honest, but this is only now we have a little bit better idea of state funding. That was a big black box for us, even though it's not settled, to Selectman Pacheco's point. I think we do have a better idea, but I also do agree we should probably obviously have the town administrator be part of this conversation. But I do think we need to come up with something for the next week, and unfortunately she's not here.
So Tom, you said Tom, are you there?
Yes.
Oh, you moved. So you said 350 would work better for you? This would be,
For those type of projects, yes.
all right, so this is something you could do, get your supplies and all that, and that way if you can get the work in before we meet, at least you can get a start on it. So do any other than, and then Todd has requested money. Does any other department head need approval before the selectmen's meeting next week?
That's an open-ended question, so feel free to unmute yourself. You're probably muted, and then let
Todd,
us.
how much money do you need?
We need $15,000.
15,000.
We need to buy trash bags. But we already submitted it to Mallory, we didn't submit it till the day after your last meeting, because we're down to our last pallet. And it takes 12
Okay, but
weeks to get the bags.
what I'm looking for is, for example, if we give Mr. Ferry the okay for his 350, are you going to be okay until the selectmen's meeting next week? So is it, all right, so the department heads, is Mr. Ferry the only one that we should consider right now today? And the rest will be okay till next Wednesday.
And again, you have to unmute yourself. If it's just Mr. Ferry, does the board feel, I mean, it seems like it's just Mr. Ferry. I didn't hear anyone. So if it's just the highway department, should we make a vote here today for this next week to get us through and have it just be specific to the highway department, since it's.
I think we should, because as you said, we don't want to hold anything up. He says he thinks he can make it to Wednesday, but the point is, if he needs the supplies and gets them now, he may be able to schedule some work before next week. I mean, his schedule is very fluid with his crew. So I think it's reasonable if we say, and this only will affect Mr. Ferry, that we would approve up to $350 for him to get the supplies he needs to take care of the weed whacking and the other kind of stuff that would be included in this request.
Selectman Pacheco, I know we had said we wanted it to be 250. When I said that, I was thinking there would be other department heads. If it's just the highway department, me personally, I'm okay with 350.
Yeah, I thought when Mr. Ferry initially spoke, he said he needed was something like $20. So we've gone from 20 now to 350.
So
I'm okay.
200.
I thought I hit 20, but that's neither here nor there. If he feels he needs the 350 between now and next week, I'm okay supporting that specifically for him. But we really need to have the larger discussion regarding any other department.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I agree.
And I also feel a little uncomfortable about voting on that during a department head meeting. I know it's a board of selectmen meeting, but that wasn't on the agenda. But I think there is an immediate need for Mr. Ferry, so I'm going to support it. Mrs. Goulart wishes to make that motion. I'll second that motion.
Okay. I move that we give Mr. Ferry permission to spend up to $350 for supplies he needs for weed whacking, and I'll include brush cutting because I know some intersections are involved in that, to get him through this period of time.
I will second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it. That motion passes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, any other department heads that would like to provide an update? I know the town accountant has joined. I don't know if you had an update. You can feel free to unmute yourself and you have the floor if you would like to provide an update, Mr. Laviolette.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I was late. I was busy doing some reclassification entries in the general ledger right now so that we can get the books closer to close. So things are progressing nicely here. All of the Any of the fiscal 21 articles that were voted at town meeting in June have been recorded, the beginning balances have been recorded. Any encumbrance requests, any of those balances have now been recorded in the fiscal 21 general ledger. So if you have, you know, as your invoices arrive that are related to encumbrances, I'd encourage you to submit your invoices so that they can be processed for payment. Just a couple of quick notes. One of the things I'm noticing on some of the departmental schedules of receipts to the treasurer, there are some mismatches between the dates of the turn-in on the schedule. There are two places where there are dates required, usually on the top right-hand corner and then one on the bottom left-hand side of the schedules. And there are mismatches in dates. And I just want to remind everyone to be mindful or careful of the dates that they're providing on those schedules. Now, for the most part, I'm assuming that anything that's come in since, say, July 15th is related to fiscal 21, but I am seeing some fiscal 20 dates still on these schedules. So I would encourage everyone to do a last-minute check before they turn in. Beyond that, I don't think I have much to update you on relative to the rest of fiscal 21 right now. Fiscal 21, the closing of the book should happen within the next couple of weeks. I'm feeling pretty confident that I can get that done. Just got some fine tuning to do on some of these expense reclassifications, especially as it relates to anything that's COVID related. So just to update everybody relative to COVID, the state of Massachusetts has asked us here in accounting to create two different funds. One for the CARES Act money, which is coming from the Commonwealth. This is the 25% reimbursement on the expenses. The other account is for the FEMA reimbursement, which we're in the process of starting a project application with FEMA. That's for the 75% reimbursement. What the state has also asked us to do is to charge any COVID-19 related expenses to the FEMA project right now. They're not asking us to make any split, you know, 75-25. If someone sends me an invoice for $100, I'm not going to split it between the two different accounts for $75 and $25. They're saying just charge it all to the FEMA grant right now. So I will provide everybody with the corresponding FEMA grant account numbers that you should be charging your COVID-19 related expenses to. Other than that, I have nothing else to update the rest of you folks on right now.
Thank you so much. Yes, Selectman Goulart, and then I want to go to Mr. Aguirre.
Okay, Chris?
Yes, ma'am.
The money that we're getting that relates to COVID-19, and I'm not sure if it's the CARES Act, I think it is, but is it your understanding that if you're a town that has its own school department, the money that would come into that town would be shared between general government and the school department? If you are a town in a regional school district, the regional district would get money of its own, and the town would get money for general government, and they're kept separate. In other words, the town would not be spending money for the regional district because it's a separate entity and they would get their own money. Is this familiar? Do you know anything about this?
Yeah, so we've had this situation, Mrs. Goulart, we've already had this situation occur. The school department hasn't, you know, the regional school district has in fact spent some money. I can't give you the exact dollar amount right now, but there does seem to be a suggestion when you read the guidance from the Commonwealth that we're somehow sharing our allotment with the regional school district. Now, what that means is that the school district can pay those bills directly, and somehow the money's going to have to filter, I'm guessing, through our records. In other words, we'll receive reimbursement, then we're going to have to turn it right back over to the school district in some manner or form. I haven't seen any reimbursement come in yet relative to those school expenditures, but when you look at there is a report that shows what every community's allotment is, and the town of Dayton's allotment is in excess of $600,000, which I knew was way, way too much money for the town of Dayton. And then what I subsequently found out is that we're supposedly sharing that money with DR.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah,
Sure.
I can,
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
so I actually didn't have a question when this conversation started, but I feel like now I do. So what does the law stipulate what the share is? Is this a 50-50 split? Who decides how much the school gets or how much the town gets? Is it just based on the receipts?
You know what, honestly, Brett, I haven't seen any guidance as to how that split is determined. I hope it's not based on some, chapter 70-like formula where, you know, they'll make a determination based on that chapter 70 formula. I have to think it's gonna be based on expenditures. And there has to be some limitation as to what we intend on spending versus what the regional school district intends on spending.
I think so. And the reason I ask that is just because if it's not based on a certain percentage of the share, then it seems like it's just whoever spends the money fastest and submits the receipts. Is that?
No.
Yeah, and I don't think that's their intent. So I will go back and read the bulletins from the Department of Revenue to find out if there's any additional guidance on what happens with the money that we're supposedly sharing.
They have to have some, it can't just be based on when you submit the receipts. It has to be based on some model.
I agree.
Statistical something.
Yes.
Selectman Goulart, you had a point, and then Mr.
just to follow up on this. If the money comes in to the town of Dayton, even before anything is spent, we need to know what's the formula. And I would think if there isn't a formula, before the regional district starts spending money that we're gonna have to cover out of that grant or whatever you wanna call it, this conversation needs to be taking place now. Chris, did I understand you to say they've already bought stuff?
From what I understand, they submitted there were a couple of emails that went back and forth between Mallory and Paul Kitchen. Am I saying, is that correct, Paul? Yes. Okay. I recall seeing a couple of emails probably between now and the last time we all met, and he was asking about how that reimbursement process would work, because I guess they've purchased computer equipment so that they can work remotely. My thinking is that they have to pay stuff out of their own operating budget just like we have. And then it's just a matter of reclassifying anything that's been spent out of operating budgets into the CARES accounts so that they can get reimbursed. But you're right, there absolutely has to be a formula that decides how we're going to divvy up that money.
My concern is Selectman Goulart's concern, which doesn't really have anything to do with the account. Well, actually it does. You should actually be in those conversations too. My concern is that my understanding, let me back up, is that Mr. Kitchen is working with the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen directly on this, right? So they're having direct conversations. We haven't been privy to any conversations as the Board of Selectmen, and my concern is I want to at least be in the know. If there's some sort of formula that directs the reimbursement, I guess we'll call it, of these expenses that are COVID related, then I think we should be part of that conversation, just like the Rehoboth Board of Selectmen is. And I think maybe that's what you were getting at, Selectman Goulart.
Sorry, until you just said that, Brett, it occurs to me that any expenses that they incur, any money that they're going to get out of the COVID accounts is going to have to be based on the formula that the towns are using now for the regional school district. That seems only fair and proper.
True.
But as far as how much of what they're going to get out of our allotment, that remains to be seen. Because you're right, because the school system could go out and build an enormous bubble around the building and, decide they're going to keep everybody inside. Everyone will just, shelter in place from now until next June once the kids get back into the school building.
I just don't want the selectmen to be not part of a conversation that revolves around finances. That's all. Selectman Goulart.
I agree.
Brett, and I know Todd wants to speak, so I'll just make this very quick.
Yep.
I don't want another situation with this money like occurred with the school budget. I mean, Mr. Swartz was very clear about how Dayton was pretty much ignored during the process. And then when we told them we weren't giving them the full amount they asked for based on their, all that to do. So I would hope that would have been a hard lesson to learn, and they would be talking to us. And I hope they also understand that I would think anyone involved in the town of Dayton, selectmen, town administrator, Todd, whoever else needs to be involved with this whole COVID thing, has a chance to get information and weigh in on it. The decisions aren't made, we're gonna go out and buy computers or whatever. When I hear that, I hear ka-ching, ka-ching. So obviously the town of Dayton has needs, and I wanna make sure our needs are protected.
Which means we need to be part of that conversation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not, this is, on my end, I'm not criticizing anybody, but
No.
if they are gonna have direct conversations, and they meaning the district, with Rehoboth Board of Selectmen, they need to have those conversations with the Dayton Board of Selectmen. And I respect our town administrator, but we shouldn't be getting trickle down information on this. We need to be part of the conversation. I feel very strongly. That's my only point on this. And I don't.
Right. And what we're describing is exactly what happened with the budget. They kind of ignored Dayton, figuring we would give them anything they asked for, and they talked to Rehoboth. And now we're at the situation where there isn't even our assessment has been approved because they're unhappy with us. So
I agree.
Mr. Pilling, and then we're going to go to the building commissioner. Sir?
So when this all came out back in whenever it was, there were 2 deadlines, and we had to report how much money we were going to spend by June 30th by a certain date. And I know Mallory came to our office and said, how much are we going to spend by that date, so she could estimate it. There's also another deadline for Mallory and the schools and any department from the entire town of Dayton. Whatever money we wanted, you had to submit your request by a certain date for what you were going to spend the money on. So everybody should have known by that deadline how much we were going to spend on what, and whether it was the school or us, to make sure we were under the total amount that we received. So that, I think Mallory was already in contact with the schools for, because we have a ceiling limit that we can't go over. So those numbers should already be in hand.
But was anyone else on the board? I wasn't even aware of that.
Again, this is what I knew of it, because I remember back in June, but I haven't. I mean, Mallory asked us how much we were going to spend from now to the end of December, and we gave her those numbers like months ago.
what was the deadline for that information?
That's what I'm looking through now, and I'm trying to find it, and it's probably in an email, but it's, I don't want to say soon, but I know we had till June like 21st for the end of June, and then I thought it was like sometime in July for the rest of the year. So
she definitely sent me emails on the care. I definitely have emails on this, so I'll go through it. And it may very well have been in there, in all fairness. It was a lengthy email, couple emails though about it. And then I will send that to the board as well. I'm not sure who it went to. I just assume we're always at least blind copied on it, but we may not have been. So I will forward that to everyone.
And Brett, and I think the other thing too is, up until us actually having this discussion right now today, we, the Board of Selectmen, we get information on the CARES Act, but it's like, for your information, we really don't have to do anything because we have other people who are staying on top of it. But now that we know that there's this question about sharing money with the regional school district, yeah, we really got to pay attention now, because this is of real concern to me, because of the fact that, as you said, evidently they've been talking to Rehoboth and not Dayton. So here we go again.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of like, they're talking to us, but it's just the information may not be trickling down to the Board of Selectmen. That's all. So we need
okay.
at the very
Thanks.
rest. Mr. Commissioner, sir, you have the floor. Sorry, let me text him. He may not. Sorry, I had to text him.
Z?
Yes, sir. Sorry, you were muted.
Okay, now you got me. Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. I'll be as quick as I can, because a few of us have a meeting in 10 minutes at the middle school. But a couple things. Thank goodness the air conditioning is now running at Town Hall. They're all fully functional. And I just did a sweep. Everybody is happy. I thank everybody for their patience. And I want to thank everybody listening today who was part of it for their support. It's something that should have gone smoother, but we did the best we could. The window project is done at COA. That is complete 100%. I sent an email out earlier to the town accountant regarding that, and he's going to follow up with Alice on any remaining funds. The last thing that I have right now that's important is I am to report to the Board of Selectmen next week regarding the upcoming auction and any potential surplus equipment, vehicles, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to ask anybody if they have anything I need to know as soon as possible so I can add it to the list. I believe, I'm not sure if the two chiefs are on today, but I believe both of those departments have a vehicle that they're going to turn in, and I'm not sure if they're ready, but we'd like to try to get it in this round of auction items if possible. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
May I ask if there's a date set for the auction, or this is just preliminary?
We will probably set that date at the next selectmen's meeting, which is next Wednesday. So that's why it's important that I compile all of the potential items prior to that date.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
if I may, Linda and I would very much like to extend our gratitude and appreciation to Mr. Aguirre for getting the air conditioning squared away down this end of the building. It's been, it's 72 degrees in here today, which is about 10 degrees cooler than it was last week. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thanks again for all your patience.
Yes.
I know it was difficult.
No, honestly, Jim, you know, Mr. Commissioner, you know how we've talked about how slow things work in government. I think that repair or replacement rather of those broken parts was probably the fastest I've ever seen anything happen. So I appreciate it.
Well, that's good. It's got something to do with the whip I carry in my pocket, but, but no, thanks. And I wasn't alone. There was a lot of people behind the scenes who helped. The highway department, town administrator, selectmen support. We had an excellent contractor. I'm looking forward to working with them from, hopefully in the future. So no, it worked out well. It was very gratifying and humbling almost, because I know how long things take. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you to everyone for sweating it out and hanging in there. We appreciate it. We just wanted you to know we were working on it. It was in the forefront of our minds. And I'm glad it was fixed. Thank you to everyone involved. Good work. Does anybody else have an update that they'd like to provide? Yes, sir. Mr. Pilling. Just unmute yourself, that's all.
Yeah, just one quick thing. Triple E is coming. The risk has been raised to moderate in Taunton. It's only a matter of time till it's here in Dayton. And that's when we close down all the parks from dusk to dawn, and that will be coming. I expect in the next week or two that we're gonna have to shut everything down. So for now, take precautions, be safe. Don't go out after dusk if you can avoid it, but it'll be in order soon. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
Mr. Rhines. Yes, I just wanted to, Jim, I don't know if you, Mr. Building Commissioner, I'm not sure if you heard it earlier on in the meeting that CPC applications are now open, and that paperwork can be, for the application for eligibility, can be found on the town website. You can download it, and if anyone's going to present any future projects, we're accepting now. Please have 10 copies ready and put it in our mailbox, and we will receive those before our next meeting, which is on August 20th. I know it's a little preliminary possibly for, some information in regards to the library possible project, but I just want to put that out there just to let people know that we're accepting applications now. So,
can I ask?
Thank you. Am I?
Sure.
Am I still muted, Jim?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
And, can we find out what the fund amount is available at CPC? Because I thought that amount was fairly low. Do you know that, Mr.?
Well, Mr. Commissioner, just off the top of my head, I believe there is 75,000 set aside in the historical section of the CPC 10, 10, and 10s. So that would be a starting point. That would possibly be the only funds that would be available for this coming year.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I don't know if that answers your question, Jim. I'm not sure.
It does.
Okay, thank you.
Selectman Pacheco, I had a question about that, or Mr. Commissioner. So if someone wanted to submit an application to get CPC funds for work on the Carnegie Building, what entity would be doing that? Is that the Historical Commission or the Library Trustees?
That's a great question.
I believe it's going to be the library trustees or the library itself that will do it. I believe they've gone in the past, Mr. Agga, you may know that. I know they had initially went for rehabbing the bathrooms, I believe, and maybe some other stuff. I don't think it was followed full on, but I believe it was the library that presented that to the CPC.
So I would
That's
agree
correct.
with that statement. I would agree with that statement, but I know our discussions are whether or not the library is still going to be the tenant in that building, and therefore then the responsibility will be shifted to elsewhere. So you said your deadline was August 20th for application submittals, correct?
No, I'm sorry, Jim. I'm sorry, Mr. Commissioner. No, we are accepting applications up until November 30. And we are meeting, our next meeting is on the 20th. And if you could get, I know, Jim, that you've already presented some earlier paperwork, but with,
Right.
I'm sorry, with no concrete numbers, that type of thing. I know this is an ongoing process thing, so I'm just putting it out there that, we're accepting applications, so.
Okay, so I would just ask the Board of Selectmen that we discuss this further in our future meetings, which I believe there's one next Thursday. And then, of course, we're meeting twice, by the end of this month.
Yep.
So, okay.
No, I think that's a good point. I think we need deadlines in mind. I have one last question on this, and I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Mr. Rhines, if the deadline is November 30th, if a project gets approved, what's the earliest possible date past November 30th, 2020 that they could actually get the check in hand to start the work?
We'd have to go in front of town meeting. Everything is contingent upon the vote at town meeting.
So it would be the annual in June 2020.
We have always done our business at an annual town meeting. We've never set a precedent to go to a special town meeting. I'm only speaking for myself. I can't speak for the new chair. And I don't know if we want to set that precedent, but if it's an emergency situation, I would think that the board would look into that. To possibly do something that is special, if it need be.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered that question, sorry.
We can continue this conversation. As the building commissioner said, we have 2 meetings, but those are interesting facts to consider in all of this, for sure.
May I just say something in another aspect of things is that I have had the pleasure of working with Mr. Pilling in regards to having our young athletes, get back on our fields of town. And what we have requested is that anyone who presented any type of paperwork to us is to have a contingency plan in place about what the CDC guidelines are and have that presented to our local Board of Health. And they will look at that paperwork and make any necessary changes, if need be, to have those individuals be as safe as possible. So I want to thank the Board of Health for working with us at Parks and Recreation in regards to getting our young athletes back out in the field. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pilling, and thank you, Mr. Rhines.
You're welcome, and thank you for taking the brunt of all these people that are reaching out and giving them proper information. We've had some troubles with misinformation getting out there, so.
You're welcome.
All right. Well, if nobody has anything else, does anyone have anything else?
Before you adjourn, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that would you and Mr. Pacheco, Selectman Pacheco, give me a phone call today? I'd like to speak with you about something.
I didn't catch the last part of that.
Yes, Selectman Pacheco, you can call me today on the phone. That would be fantastic. I'd like to have a conversation about something.
I will.
Thank you. And Dr. Zagrafis, you also, please, if you would.
Yep, separate conversation, but yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
All right, if we have nothing else, I did just want to add two things. This month, we plan to start the conversations regarding the safety zones. And again, we will start those conversations regarding the soil revision of the soil bylaw as well. So I guess the take home is we will have a special town meeting, we think, come this fall. It creeps up earlier than when you think. So you might want to start thinking about bylaw changes, reviewing your bylaws, special articles, anything like that. It's never too soon. So it creeps up on you. If you don't have it all worked out, submit a placeholder to either Mrs. Brady or Mrs. Aaronstein. And once you have it fleshed out, get the real version to us. So thank you. And with that.
Brett,
Yes.
Tom?
Yes.
Tom and Todd, do you guys have time now to go over that letter for Strawberry Farms?
Mr. Ferry told me he had to go.
Oh, Todd's got to go. Okay. All right. All right, Tom.
Yeah, he messaged
It's
me
not going to work.
30 minutes ago. Actually, 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn if my colleagues have nothing to add.
So moved.
So move. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? The ayes have it, and that motion passes. Have a good day, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday at 6 for our selectmen's meeting.
Yep. Take care.
Have a good day, everyone.
Yep. Bye-bye.